In a generous gesture befitting the benevolence of a true patriarch, Abraham took Lot to a point overlooking the land and said, "Let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herders and mine, for we are kindred. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the land to the left, then I will take the land to the right. Or if you take the right, I will go to the left." The young Lot chose the better site, the rich and fertile land of Jordan, described in the Bible as well-watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. So Lot settled among the cities of the plain, and moved his tent as far as Sodom, and Abraham settled in Canaan. In Genesis 13:14, the Lord said to Abraham,
"Raise your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and to your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring also can be counted. Rise up, walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I will give it to you."
Abraham led his household through the land of Canaan, and eventually set up his tents in Mamre, as he was commanded by God. Here Abraham built an altar to the Lord. It was there that this patriarch of peace was drawn into battle. In the valley of Siddim, in the area near the southern end of the Dead Sea, near the peninsula of Al-Isam, a mighty war was being waged. The armies of the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah were routed by their enemies. The people of Sodom and Gomorrah fled to the hills, while the enemy took all their goods and provisions. And along with them, they took Abraham's nephew Lot as a prisoner. One of the soldiers who had escaped came and told Abraham that Lot had been taken captive. That night, Abraham assembled the men of his house, according to the Bible, 318 of them, and took off after the enemy. Abraham's army caught up with them, and under the cover of darkness, they attacked. The surprised enemy was routed and defeated. Abraham rescued Lot and brought back all the goods that had been taken. For his heroism and his deeds in battle, Abraham was honored and blessed by Melchizedek, the king of Salem, an early name for Jerusalem, who is referred to in the Bible as a priest of God Most High, and Abraham gave him a tenth of everything. But when the grateful king of Sodom offered to let Abraham keep all the goods he had recovered in battle, Abraham declined. He took nothing. He said to the king of Sodom, "I have sworn to the Lord, God Most High, maker of heaven and earth, that I would not take a thread or a sandal thong or anything that is yours, so that you might not say, 'I have made Abraham rich.'" That night, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. In Genesis 15:1, the Lord said to Abraham,
"Do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. Look toward heaven and count the stars. If you are able to count them, so shall your descendants be."
Whether it was impatience or a lack of faith, Sarah decided to take matters into her own hands. At that time, Sarah had an Egyptian slave girl named Hagar, and Sarah decided that Abraham should take her as a concubine to produce an heir. Sarah said to Abraham, "You see that the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my slave girl. It may be that I shall obtain children by her." So after Abraham had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarah took Hagar, her slave girl, and gave her to her husband Abraham as a wife. And when Abraham was 86 years old, Hagar bore Abraham a son. They named the child Ishmael. "13 years later, when Abraham was 99, God once more appeared and repeated his promises to Abraham. This time, however, he also added a ritual requirement. In Genesis 17:4, God said,
As for me, this is my covenant with you. You shall be the ancestor of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. And I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land where you are now an alien, all the land of Canaan for a perpetual holding. Every male among you shall be circumcised when he is 8 days old, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. Any uncircumcised male shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant.
At the same time, God also told Abraham he would give him a son by Sarah. Abraham fell down laughing. He said to himself, "How can a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? How can Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child?" Abraham then pleaded that God might recognize his son Ishmael. Oh, that Ishmael might live in your sight. In Genesis 17:19, God replied,
No, but your wife Sarah shall bear you a son, and you shall name him Isaac. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will bless him and make him fruitful and exceedingly numerous. He shall be the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear you at this season next year.
That very day, Abraham, with his son Ishmael, and all the men of his household, were circumcised. Sometime later, as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day, Abraham looked up, and 3 men suddenly appeared in front of him. Abraham ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. In the tradition of Eastern hospitality, Abraham brought them water so they could wash their feet, and had Sarah and his servants prepare food for the visitors. Abraham set food before them, and they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There, in the tent." Then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." The men then set out for Sodom, and Abraham went with them to show them the way. As the men turned and headed for Sodom, Abraham remained and spoke to the Lord. The Lord explained to Abraham that there was a great outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah for their wickedness and sin, and he had come to judge them. Abraham then fulfilled God's promise that he would be a blessing even to other nations. He stood before God and questioned his decision to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. If there was even a small number of God-fearing people, could not the sinners be saved? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then destroy the place? And the Lord responded to Abraham, "If I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will forgive the whole place for their sake." Then Abraham continued to bargain with God. "Will you destroy the whole city if you find 45 righteous people?" God answered, "No." Abraham persisted. "How about 40? How about 30? How about 20? And then, perhaps remembering he was indeed arguing with the Almighty, "Oh, do not let the Lord be angry if I speak just once more. Suppose 10 are found."